Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Volume 2, District Commander, Binh Dinh, Vietnam, 1969. This is a game designed by Brian Train and published by Hollandspiele. I've already covered Volume 1, Virtualia, on the channel, and now we're taking a look at Volume 2, which has just recently been made available by Hollandspiele. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game's all about. District Commander Binh Dinh, time 1969. Place, Central Coast of Vietnam. Situation, a combination of irregular fighters belonging to the National Liberation Front, commonly known as the Viet Cong, and the professional soldiers of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, North Vietnam, confound the South Vietnamese government and its American and South Korean allies. Among other things, the insurgents try to run supply units, groups of infiltrators, porters, supplies, and weapons who have infiltrated via the Ho Chi Minh Trail and traversed the Central Highlands through to the coast, while Free World forces use technically advanced reconnaissance assets, Defoliants, Agent Orange, and the Phoenix program to interfere with the insurgents. This second volume in Mr. Train's District Commander series is the first historical entry taking as its subject the quintessential struggle for hearts and minds. Here we focus on a period of transition as government forces shift their emphasis from engaging the enemy in pitched battles to providing population security and pacification. How is legitimacy maintained and how is it lost? In the dense jungles of Vietnam, perhaps you will find the answer. And it says at the top it comes with a 22 by 17 inch map, 264 counters, a double-sided player aid, 2-player display sheets, 16-page system rulebook, and an 8-page module rulebook, and 10 strategy cards. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. All right, we get our strategy cards, our module rules, series rules, player aids, a sheet and a half of counters, and our map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with Binh Dinh. If you saw my coverage of the first game in the series, Virtualia, or if you're a coin fan, you're going to feel very much at home and this is going to look very familiar to you. This is the Central Coast area of Vietnam. It is broken down into separate areas. Inside those areas, you're going to have an underground location as well as a population and terrain modifier number that will affect operations and combat in those locations. There are also these red highways that cut through, and these will serve as lines of communication in the game, which can be imperative to different victory conditions. Now we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. The first two are the player mats. The all-purpose record tracker is going to be used to keep track of your task points as well as your score. Then you have the units available for deployment, militia available for recruitment, disrupted units and assets, and the 5 strategies for the insurgent player at the bottom. And the same for the government player. One thing to note, don't forget to turn these over. On the back of one, you're going to have a breakdown of all 4 games in the series that'll explain to you what each of these will encompass. And then on the second sheet, you're going to have designer's notes where Brian is going to talk about his idea of time, combat, factions, intelligence, infrastructure, control, and victory in the series. And the final player aid card gives us our sequence of play, all the steps in the planning and preparation phase, operations phase, and in the turn end phase. And on the opposite side, we have our mission chart, which breaks down our tactical and non-tactical missions. The government has the patrol option only, and the ambush only goes to the insurgent. Everything else is available to both factions. And we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. Orange units are insurgents, and blue units are government. We have some militia, guerrillas. Here we've got some insurgent assets. To the right, we have the infrastructure units, which are food, water, all necessities for living. And to the right top, we have chance chits. This is a diceless game, and these are what you're going to be using to determine outcomes of combats and missions. Then on the second counter sheet, we have the continuation of the insurgent units. These are main force units. We have government units here, as well as government assets on the top. On the bottom right, this is for Agent Orange. It is kind of a weird-looking icon at first, but then you realize it is a plane spraying defoliant behind it. Now we'll take a look at the strategy cards for Binh Dinh. There are 5 for the insurgent and 5 for the government player. Take a look at the insurgents first. These will give you a listing of victory points that are available based on the strategy you choose. And you can see there are 5 different cards, each for the 5 different strategies available to you on your player mat. And the government player, just like the insurgent player, has 5 different strategy cards for the 5 different strategies, listing the victory points that are available, as well as any penalties you may incur based on the strategy you choose. And we'll take a look at the series rules for District Commander. They start on page 1 and they end on page 12 with your special rules. Page 13, 14, and 15 are a combination of advanced optional rules, scenario setup instructions, and optional variations on play. Inside, we start off with our introduction, game concepts and components. Mechanics are all explained to you, and then secrecy, winning the game, variable strategies, and then we get to our components. Combat units for the government and then for the insurgents as well are all broken down for you. Infrastructure units, all of these we saw on the counter sheet, and these are explained to you in good order here in the rulebook. Then we get to strategy cards, and the sequence of play starts on page 5. So you're looking at from page 5 to 12 are the actual rules with a couple pages of optional rules and optional variants. So not a tremendous amount of rules to take in, but these are all text. There are no illustrated examples of play, so you'll have to pay close attention to reading everything in the rulebook. Start off with the planning and preparations phase, random event segment, command and planning segment, deployment segment, and then your intelligence segment. Then you get to your player missions. Those are all explained to you, and how to use your TP, your task points. Those are the currency that you'll be using to do all of your missions in the game. Then we have foreign firepower advantage, ambush, move, non-tactical missions like building friendly infrastructure, reducing enemy infrastructure, and recruit or promote militia. There's one of the text examples I was talking about before. Then you also have intimidate with an example, and remove terror, and then you get to disruption of units. Then we get to terrorized areas, turn end phase, redeployment segment, calculate your next turn's TP allotment, victory point adjustment segment, and you appeal to authority segment. Then you have special rules here on page 12. And then you have advanced optional rules start here on page 13 with assets, foreign combat units and assets, intelligence segment, intelligence chits and how to draw them from the pool. Then you get to your scenario setup instructions, and then optional variations of play. If you want to change things up, you've gotten pretty familiar with the game, you want to change it up a little bit, here's some things you can do with it. Then we have a variant on solitaire play, and then a whole section on staff efficiency. Note on the solitaire play, this is meant to be played with the chits, not played with dice. So it is a diceless game. Those who love to play with dice, I'm one of them. You're not going to use dice in this game, and it is designed that way. So if you're going to play with this no chit Sherlock variant, bear in mind you're going to skew the results of the game quite a bit. It's not designed that way. It's really a tight design that's meant to be used with the chits. So if you're going to play solitaire, I recommend sticking with the chits. And we'll take a look at the module rules for Binh Dinh. This is a 6-page rulebook. Half of it are rules for this game, and then the other half are advanced optional rules, scenarios, and designer's notes, as well as a copy of the random events table on the back of the book. Inside, we start off with our introduction, game concepts and components, a breakdown of all the unit counters for both the government and insurgent, and then we have the special rules like Militia, Monsoon, Agent Orange. And we get to the advanced optional rules, which is where you get your assets for your government player and insurgent player, intelligence chits, supply chits, and then your scenarios and setup instructions. There are 3 different scenarios in the game: historical, free deployment, and random deployment. Historical will have a order of battle here listed out for you, and then there is a free deployment scenario and then a random deployment scenario, which uses a table to set up. Then you have optional scenario variants here, and then the designer's notes from Brian Train at the last page. And on the back of the book, we have a copy of the random events table. And that is a look at everything you get inside of District Commander Volume 2, Binh Dinh, a game designed by Brian Train and published by Hollandspiele Games. If you are a fan of Coin or Brian Train, you know what to expect if you've got Virtualia. This is the 2nd volume in the series. If you haven't gotten either one of them, now's time to pick up both. Hollandspiele makes some really great games. The quality is really fantastic. The rule books are outstanding, very easy to understand. The only thing I would like to see changed in a rule book with Hollandspiele, and this is a personal thing for me, is I really love illustrated examples of play. The text examples of play are perfect. They work great, but I'm just a visual person. I like that. I'd like to see that added in the future if possible, but it's not really a big deal. Like I said, just personal thing that I have. But really enjoy Brian's designs. I love the fact that you've got your base game and then you have advanced optional rules and then some other optional rules that you can add in as you see fit to kind of create your own situation, explore it, and learn some more about history. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. You have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.